In a Fox Carolina investigation, there are more than double the number of suicides in Greenville County than there are homicides. That's according to the Greenville County Coroner's Office.
And these are the number of suicide cases Upstate Coroner's Office has worked over the last 3 years. Now, we're looking at the total number of cases and then how many of those victims fell into what we consider to be a student age range, 6 to 26. So here's Anderson County. In 2016, there were 41 suicides. In that age group, 6 to 26, there were 12. In 2017, there were 36, with 9 of them falling in that student range. And then in 2018, last year, they saw 31, with 7 falling into the age range.
Now, that was Anderson County. Here's Greenville County, where they had 81 total suicides in 2016, with 14 of them falling into the age range there. 2017, that number went up to 93 total suicides. 17 of them were between 6 and 26 years old. And then in 2018, the same number of suicides, 93, with 14 of them among those student age ranges.
Well, Upstate colleges are trying to raise awareness about suicide and prevention, and Out of the Darkness walks are scheduled at Clemson and Furman this month.
And in a two-part story, we're talking to students who have struggled with these thoughts and families who've lost people to suicide. And we're also going to share what resources are available for suicide prevention. Fox Carolina's Alexa Rodriguez has more.
Are you thinking about suicide?
You wouldn't mix your words if you thought I was having a hard time breathing.
It's a tough question to ask.
It's a hard issue to talk about, but it's so important because the alternative is losing lives. I struggled personally in high school. I attempted suicide when I was a sophomore, so I was 15 years old.
Sydney Wright is now a college graduate organizing Furman University's Out of the Darkness Campus Walk, an event focused on suicide prevention.
I remember calling my dad that night after I had attempted suicide and thought I was telling him goodbye, but I heard the hurt in his voice and knew that I was asking for help.
Sydney isn't the only student who's had suicidal thoughts.
In the state of South Carolina, suicide is the second leading cause of death between ages 10 to 34. For a lot of people, it's very hard to imagine, right? Like, how can that thought just pop into someone's head? But one way you can look at it is a little bit like a physical illness.
Take asthma, for example. You can do everything in your power to alleviate your asthma, but things out of your control can make it worse. Dr. Alex Caridi from the South Carolina Department of Mental Health says suicide works the same way.
If I go to my doctor and say, you know what, my suicidal thoughts are coming back and they've been bugging me. Well, remember, sometimes you get depressed, and when you get really depressed, you might think about suicide. So it's important that you talk to a friend, that you see your counselor, that you're taking your medicine. So having like the same conversations we do with pretty much any other illness or situation that is stressful, but having the right conversations around it is really important.
Dr. Caridi says those conversations need to be supportive so people feel a connection to the other person and know they are loved.
Because that's the number one thing people say. I feel like I'm a burden to my family, to my friends, that them having these thoughts happen, and that's okay.
Just ask Sydney.
I'd love to be free of it, obviously, but I am diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and PTSD, and they're hard diagnoses to have, and it's something I'm aware that it's not going to go away easy, and I can feel it come back every once in a while, but being aware of it, I think, keeps me more in check and keeps me healthier.
Even though those thoughts occasionally creep back in, Sydney says she's the happiest she's ever been in her life.
Just forcing that into 15-year-old me's mind that it does get better and high school is not the end-all be-all. It is possible to be happy, and just reach out to someone.
If you or someone you know is having suicidal thoughts, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255 or text the National Crisis Text Line at 741-741. Alexa Rodriguez, Fox Carolina News.
Now, the doctor you heard from there says some of the most obvious warning signs to look for are changes in behavior. If you know someone who enjoys being outside and has a major sweet tooth, but they start losing their appetite and staying inside more, they say it's time to start a conversation. And she does encourage people to be direct to the other person so they know someone cares and is trying to reach out and help.